How to see everything with compassionate eyes. Have you ever found yourself looking at the world through eyes that are clouded by judgment, fear, or anger? Maybe you've walked through a crowded street, surrounded by people, yet felt a sense of isolation, as if you were seeing them, but not truly seeing them. We live in a world that's overwhelmed by noise, the constant chatter of our minds, the clamor of the media, the judgment we pass on ourselves and others. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing things only through the lens of our own experiences, our own biases. We become prisoners of our own perceptions, unable to break free and witness the world as it truly is. But what if there was another way? What if we could see the world not through a filter of criticism or apathy, but through something far more powerful, something that could heal not just our hearts, but the hearts of everyone we meet? This is where the concept of compassionate eyes comes into play. In the teachings of Buddhism, compassion is not just a feeling, it's a profound way of seeing. It's an awareness that comes from the heart, but also from deep understanding. Compassionate eyes don't just see the surface of things, they see the deeper truths that lie beneath. They allow us to look at others not as strangers, but as fellow travelers on this journey of life, bound by shared experiences, hopes, and suffering. Imagine, for a moment, how different your day would be if you could see every person, every situation, with compassion. If you could look beyond the outer appearances, beyond the judgments and the layers of fear, and see the true essence of what is, both in yourself and in others. This is the transformative power of compassionate eyes. But this isn't something that happens overnight. It's a practice. It's a way of seeing that requires us to be present, to be mindful, and to cultivate a heart full of empathy and understanding. In this video, we will explore how to develop compassionate eyes, eyes that can see the world with kindness and clarity. We will journey through the profound teachings of Buddhism and discover how mindfulness, empathy, and self-awareness can help us transform the way we perceive the world around us. Through stories, teachings, and deep reflection, we'll unlock the true power of seeing with compassion. But before we dive deeper into this, let me ask you one simple question. How often do you stop to really see? Do you see with compassion, with the eyes of understanding, the eyes that look beyond the surface? Or do you find yourself quick to judge, to categorize, to separate? What if you could change that? Starting today, this is the journey we're about to embark on. So, take a moment. Breathe. And let's begin to see the world, and each other, with the eyes of compassion. To understand the power of compassionate eyes, we must first ask, what is compassion? And more importantly, what does compassion mean in the context of Buddhism? Compassion is often seen as a feeling, a desire to alleviate the suffering of others, to help them in their times of need. But in Buddhism, compassion, or karuna, is something much deeper. It's not just a feeling, but a way of being in the world. It's a practice that goes beyond mere sympathy or pity. In the Buddhist tradition, compassion is the direct result of wisdom. It's not an emotion that arises from ignorance or fleeting moments of kindness, but rather it comes from a profound understanding of the true nature of life and the interconnectedness of all beings. Think about it for a moment. Every single person you meet, every animal, every plant, and even the very air we breathe, is part of this vast web of life. In Buddhism, we believe that all beings are connected, and by seeing the suffering of others, we see our own suffering reflected back at us. Imagine a deep well of understanding, where the more you draw from it, the more your heart expands with the capacity to care. That's what Buddhist compassion is. It's a boundless force that arises when you see the world with wisdom, a wisdom that understands the impermanence of life, the shared experience of suffering, and the endless potential for healing. But this wisdom doesn't come easily. It requires us to look inward, to examine the ways in which we contribute to suffering, both in ourselves and in others. It means acknowledging our own pain and seeing that it's not separate from the pain of the world. We are all bound by the same truths of life: birth, aging, sickness, and death. When we truly understand these fundamental truths, compassion naturally arises. It's the natural response to suffering. In Buddhism, the path to cultivating compassion is deeply intertwined with cultivating wisdom. The more we understand the transient nature of everything, our relationships, our possessions, our very selves, the more we can open our hearts to others. But it's not just about knowing these truths intellectually. Compassion requires us to feel them in our bones, to internalize them in such a way that when we look at another person, we don't see them as other. We see them as part of the same story, living through the same struggles, seeking the same peace. Consider this: when you encounter someone who is angry, upset, or even rude, do you respond with judgment or with curiosity? Do you see their behavior as a reflection of their own suffering, or do you immediately categorize them as difficult or wrong? Compassion asks us to look deeper. It asks us to see beyond the surface, beyond the actions and the words, and recognize the universal truth that all beings, including ourselves, are deeply affected by the same forces. We are all part of the same cycle, experiencing the same struggles, the same desires, the same fears. In the Buddha's teachings, compassion is often paired with wisdom. They are inseparable. Wisdom without compassion can lead to cold detachment. Compassion without wisdom can lead to blind charity. But when wisdom and compassion work together, they create a powerful force that can heal not only the individual but the world. To truly see the world with compassionate eyes, we must first see ourselves with compassion. We must recognize our own flaws, our own suffering, and understand that we, too, are deserving of kindness. Only then can we extend that same compassion to others. As we journey forward in this video, we will explore how this deep understanding of compassion can transform our relationships, our actions, and our perception of the world. So, take a moment to reflect. How do you see the suffering in the world? Do you see it as something distant, something out there? Or do you recognize that suffering is something we all experience, and in that recognition, find the potential for compassion? When we begin to see the world through the eyes of compassion, the very fabric of our reality begins to shift. It's not just about feeling sympathy, it's about taking action. It's about seeing every person as a reflection of the interconnectedness that binds us all, and that's where the journey truly begins. As we explore the path of compassionate vision, we must also acknowledge the obstacles, the blockages, that stand in the way of truly seeing with compassion. It's not enough to simply wish to see the world with a heart full of understanding. The truth is, we are often blind to the suffering around us, and to our own suffering, because of the blockages we carry within ourselves. In Buddhism, these blockages are referred to as kleshas, the mental afflictions that cloud our judgment and distort our perception. These are the emotions, the thoughts, and the attachments that bind us to suffering and prevent us from seeing clearly. They are the very roots of the suffering we wish to alleviate in ourselves and others. Let's take a moment to consider the most common blockages we face. 1. Attachment to self. The first and perhaps most powerful blockage to compassionate vision is the attachment to our own sense of self. We tend to see the world through a narrow lens, one that is defined by me, mine, and I. When we are consumed with our own desires, fears, and identities, we lose sight of others. We become trapped in our own little world, unable to see beyond our own needs. This attachment to self creates a barrier between us and the rest of the world. It leads to feelings of separation and isolation. We think of ourselves as different from others, as better or worse, and this separation fuels judgment and criticism. Compassion can't flourish in this environment. When we view others as separate, we fail to see their suffering as our own, but when we let go of the rigid boundaries we place around our sense of self, we begin to realize the interconnectedness of all beings. The more we loosen our attachment to me, the more room there is for compassion to arise. 2. Judgment and criticism. Another major blockage is our tendency to judge. We judge others based on their appearance, their actions, or their beliefs. We look at someone and decide, this person is good, this person is bad, this person is deserving of compassion, this one is not. This habit of judgment creates a wall that prevents us from truly seeing others as they are. Judgment comes from fear, fear of the unknown, fear of difference, fear of what we don't understand. But judgment is a barrier to compassion. It distorts our vision, causing us to see people through the lens of labels rather than seeing them as human beings, just like us, struggling in their own unique ways. Compassion requires us to see without judgment. To see with clarity and understanding. It calls for us to look beyond the surface and recognize the shared humanity in every person, regardless of their behavior or circumstances. 3. Fear and distrust. Fear is another powerful blockage. It's easy to see the world as a dangerous place, full of threats and challenges. We fear what we don't understand, and we fear what might hurt us. This fear causes us to close our hearts, to shut ourselves off from others. We hold back our compassion because we believe that if we open ourselves up, we might be hurt, but this fear is based on illusion. In reality, when we close our hearts to others, we only create more suffering for ourselves. Fear keeps us trapped in isolation, while compassion is the key to freedom. When we learn to let go of fear and embrace the vulnerability of seeing others with kindness, we open ourselves to deep healing and connection. 4. Resentment and anger. Perhaps one of the most difficult blockages to overcome is the presence of resentment and anger. When we've been hurt or wronged, it's natural to feel anger and resentment. We carry the weight of these emotions, and they become part of our identity. We may believe that holding on to anger is a form of protection, that it somehow justifies our suffering, but resentment and anger only cloud our vision. They make it impossible to see the world with compassionate eyes. These emotions feed our attachment to self, our sense of injustice, and our desire for retribution. Holding on to anger prevents us from seeing the other person's suffering, their humanity, and their need for compassion. True compassion requires forgiveness, not just of others, but of ourselves. It requires the courage to release resentment and anger, to open our hearts even in the face of pain. Only then can we truly begin to see the world with clarity and love. Now, you might be wondering, how do we overcome these blockages? How do we clear the path for compassion to flow? It's a lifelong journey, one that requires mindfulness, self-awareness, and practice. But the key to dissolving these blockages is rooted in understanding the nature of our minds. As we continue our exploration, we'll uncover the tools and practices that can help us loosen these blockages, helping us see the world through clearer, more compassionate eyes. Imagine waking up in the morning, not just to a new day, but to a new way of seeing. You look out the window, and instead of rushing into thoughts, judgments, or tasks, you pause. You breathe. You feel the light enter your body, and you allow your heart to soften. This is the beginning of seeing with compassionate eyes, but let's be honest, compassion isn't a switch we can flip on. It's a garden. And like any garden, it needs care, patience, and daily tending. In this chapter, we'll explore the practical, simple, yet powerful practices that slowly transform our way of seeing, from judgment to understanding, from fear to connection, from indifference to deep empathy. 1. The practice of stopping, pausing before you react. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate compassion is through the act of stopping. Yes, just stopping, before the reaction, before the judgment, before the rush. In Zen Buddhism, this is known as non-doing or shikantaza, just sitting, just being. And in daily life, this practice looks like taking one conscious breath before responding to someone. It means not letting our conditioned mind jump ahead to assumptions. When someone irritates us, instead of firing back with frustration, we pause. We breathe. We ask, what might they be going through? This pause is not weakness. It is the birthplace of wisdom. It is the sacred space where compassion is allowed to emerge. 2. Mindful listening, hearing with the heart. Most people don't truly listen, they wait for their turn to speak. But listening, deep listening, is a radical act of compassion. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen master, taught that when we listen with full presence, we offer the other person a rare and precious gift, the feeling of being understood. Try this. In your next conversation, set aside your need to fix, to judge, or to respond. Just be present. Listen with your heart, not just your ears. Notice their tone, their silence, their subtle emotions. When we truly listen, we begin to see, not just the words, but the suffering behind them, the longing, the fear, the hope. This simple practice, listening without needing to fix, can turn an ordinary interaction into a moment of healing. 3. Daily metta meditation, rewiring the mind for loving kindness. Metta, or loving kindness meditation, is the direct training of the heart. You sit quietly. You bring to mind someone you love. You repeat silently, may you be happy. May you be safe. May you be well. Then, and this is where the transformation begins, you bring to mind someone you're neutral toward. Then, someone you dislike. You say the same words, may you be happy. May you be safe. May you be well. At first, it might feel fake. You might resist. But slowly, something shifts. The walls begin to soften. Your brain begins to rewire itself. Emotional habits that were tight and contracted begin to loosen. Even just 5 minutes of metta each day can gradually dissolve anger, soften defensiveness, and make space for true compassion to arise. 4. Seeing people as children, a shift in perception. Here's a practice that may surprise you. See everyone, yes, everyone, as a child. Imagine the angry boss as a frightened 5-year-old who never received enough love. Imagine the rude cashier as a teenager overwhelmed with anxiety. Imagine the person who cut you off in traffic as someone racing to care for a sick loved one. This isn't to excuse harmful behavior, but to understand it. Everyone carries a story you don't see. Everyone was once a child, full of innocence and hope. When we shift our perception in this way, we begin to relate not to the mask people wear, but to the vulnerability beneath it. And that is where compassion lives. 5. Walking meditation, bringing compassion into each step. You don't need a monastery to practice Buddhism. Every sidewalk, every hallway, every stretch of earth is a path to mindfulness. In walking meditation, each step is taken slowly, with full awareness. You place your foot down as if kissing the earth. With each step, you breathe in peace. With each step, you breathe out compassion. I have arrived. I am home. This practice grounds you in the present moment and connects your body to your heart. It turns even a trip to the grocery store into a sacred journey of awareness. When you walk mindfully, you begin to feel the suffering of others passing by, and your heart naturally begins to open. So often we believe compassion is a feeling, something we must wait for, something that happens only in moments of great emotion, but the truth is more liberating. Compassion is a skill. It can be trained. It can be deepened. And it begins with simple practices, repeated daily. We're not striving for perfection. We're planting seeds, seeds that will one day become the very eyes through which we see the world. There is a quiet revolution that begins the moment we start to see with compassionate eyes. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it unfolds gently, like a flower opening under morning light, and yet. This shift changes everything. When we truly see with compassion, we no longer look at the world from the outside in, we begin to feel it from the inside out. We stop merely observing people's actions and start sensing their pain. We stop labeling and start understanding. And in that understanding, we change. Let's explore how this transformation happens, not as a theory, but as a living experience. 1. Compassion transforms relationships, from conflict to connection. Think of a relationship in your life that has been tense, perhaps a coworker, a family member, or even a stranger you avoid. When you look at them through judgmental eyes, you focus on flaws, on faults, on differences. But the moment you shift, even slightly, to compassion, something opens. You begin to ask, what are they carrying? What pain might they be hiding behind that sharp voice? What unmet needs might be driving their anger? You stop reacting and start relating, and suddenly, what was once a battlefield becomes sacred ground, a place where understanding can take root. You may not change the other person, but you change the energy between you. And often, that's enough to shift the entire relationship. 2. Compassion transforms the inner voice, from criticism to kindness. Not only does compassion change how we see others, it also transforms how we see ourselves. Most people walk around with a harsh inner critic. A voice that says, "You're not enough. You should have done better. You're a failure." This voice poisons the mind. It whispers shame and keeps us locked in fear, but when we begin to practice compassionate seeing, especially in meditation or moments of silence, we start to witness that voice without believing it, and we learn to offer ourselves the same compassion we long to give others. We begin to say, "It's okay to be imperfect. You are doing your best. You are worthy, even when you stumble." This inner shift is not small. It is the very foundation of healing. Because when we soften toward ourselves, we begin to heal the wounds that have kept us blind for years. 3. Compassion shifts our worldview. From scarcity to shared humanity. We live in a world that teaches us to compete, to compare, to divide, rich versus poor, right versus wrong, us versus them. But compassionate eyes break down those illusions. You start to see, the homeless person on the street is not other, they are you, in a different story. The child crying in the supermarket is not an annoyance, they are a human in distress. Even the person who hurt you is not purely evil, they are a being shaped by their own wounds. This doesn't mean we lose discernment. It doesn't mean we stop standing up for justice. It means we start from understanding, not hatred, as the Dalai Lama often says. Compassion is not a luxury. It is a necessity for human survival. Compassion rehumanizes the world. It allows us to see that we're all walking each other home. 4. Compassion deepens presence. From distraction to real living. When your eyes are filled with compassion, you start to slow down. You begin to notice things you never saw before, the sadness in a friend's smile, the tension in a stranger's shoulders, the beauty in the ordinary moments, a breeze, a laugh, a leaf falling. You stop rushing through life and start feeling it, because compassion roots us in the present. And in the present, everything is alive. You no longer live on autopilot. You wake up. And in that waking, the world transforms. 5. Compassion becomes who you are, not just what you do. Perhaps the most powerful transformation of all is this: compassion stops being something you practice and starts being something you embody. It becomes the lens through which you see the world, not as a technique, but as a natural way of being. You enter a room, and people feel calmer. You speak, and others feel seen. You smile, and healing begins. Why? Because you are no longer just a person reacting to life. You've become a presence that transmits peace. And this is not mystical. It's deeply human. When you train your eyes to see through love, your whole presence becomes a medicine. So yes, seeing with compassionate eyes changes everything. It transforms conflict into connection, shame into healing, division into unity, and ordinary life into sacred ground. But the journey doesn't stop here. Because the deeper we go into compassion, the more we realize, it's not just about us. It's about the collective. It's about the world we're helping to shape, one thought, one breath, one look at a time. Compassion is beautiful, but let's be honest. It's not always easy. It's easy to be compassionate when life is calm, when people are kind, when your heart feels full, when the sun is shining and the world seems to smile back. But what about when it's not? What about when you're betrayed? What about when the news floods you with images of war, cruelty, injustice? What about when someone yells at you for something you didn't do? When a loved one lies? When strangers are rude, selfish, or blind? This is where the real test begins. True compassion is forged in the fire of hardship. 1. The myth that compassion means weakness. Let's clear one thing first: compassion is not weakness. Compassion is not being soft, passive, or letting people walk all over you. Compassion does not mean saying, "It's okay" to everything. In fact, it takes immense strength to remain compassionate when the world tries to harden your heart. Anger is easy, judgment is automatic, revenge feels satisfying, for a moment, but to keep your heart open. When everything in you wants to shut down, that is strength. Think of great spiritual leaders, the Buddha, Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Thich Nhat Hanh. None of them were weak. They were powerful because they loved fiercely, even in the face of hate. Compassion, when it stands in truth, becomes a shield and a sword. It does not excuse wrongdoing, it understands it, confronts it, and transforms it. 2. Facing injustice without losing your soul. Injustice is real, oppression, racism, cruelty, greed, they exist, so how do we hold compassion? Without becoming numb, the answer is not to look away, the answer is not to deny your anger. Anger is a messenger, it tells us, something is wrong. But if we react only from anger, we become what we fight. Compassion invites us to go deeper, it says, yes, I see the harm, but I will not become hate. Yes, I will stand up, but I will do so without losing my humanity. Yes, I will speak truth, but I will not abandon love. This is not easy, it requires emotional maturity, it requires sitting with pain, our own and the world's, without running away. It means choosing to respond, not react, it means seeing the person behind the behavior, not to excuse them, but to understand how suffering births more suffering. 3. The world needs warriors of compassion, right now, more than ever. The world needs people who are grounded in compassion, not as a weak sentiment, but as a powerful presence. In politics, we need compassion. In the workplace, we need compassion. In our homes, we need compassion, not sympathy, not pity, not blind tolerance, but real, fierce, intelligent compassion, the kind that can see clearly, speak firmly, and still choose love over hate. You can be clear without being cruel. You can be strong without being cold. You can hold people accountable without dehumanizing them. This is the sacred balance. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, when another person makes you suffer, it is because he suffers deeply within himself. He does not need punishment, he needs help. 4. Self-compassion in a world that drains you. Compassion fatigue is real, you care too much, and suddenly you feel burned out. You stop watching the news. You stop reaching out. You shut down because your heart is tired. So here's the truth, you cannot give compassion to others if you don't first offer it to yourself. This is not selfish, it's wise, you are a vessel. If you don't refill your own heart, you'll have nothing left to offer. So take breaks, breathe deeply, meditate, cry if you must, let nature heal you, let silence hold you, and remember, you're not responsible for fixing everything, you're responsible for showing up, with presence, with love, with truth. Even a small act of compassion ripples outward more than you can imagine. 5. How do you stay compassionate in a world that's often cruel? You practice, every single day, you don't wait to feel like it. You train it, like a muscle. When you see something painful, instead of scrolling past, pause, and offer a silent wish, may you be free from suffering. When someone cuts you off in traffic, breathe, and whisper, you must be in pain. I wish you peace. When someone says something hateful, look deeper, you must be deeply afraid. May clarity come to you. This doesn't mean you let it all slide, this means you reclaim your power, you stop feeding the fire of reactivity. And you start becoming a source of stillness, a lighthouse in the storm. The harshness of the world will always try to harden you, but your task is to remain soft, without breaking, to remain open, without leaking, to remain clear, without cruelty. This is the sacred path of the Bodhisattva, the one who chooses to stay in the world, not to escape it, but to serve it with wisdom and compassion. You may feel small, but don't underestimate the impact of one awakened heart, because one drop of compassion can ripple across oceans. If you've come this far, take a deep breath, feel it, something within you has already shifted. This wasn't just a lesson, this was a mirror, a path, a calling. from the very first moment we spoke of seeing with compassionate eyes, this was never about just looking at life differently, it was about being different, and now, it's your turn to become that which the world so desperately needs. 1. Seeing the world, not as it is, but as it can be. Every day, you'll be tempted to judge, to react, to close off, to see others through the eyes of suspicion, cynicism, or fear, but in those moments, pause, breathe, return, and remember, the world doesn't need more opinions. The world needs more presence, more hearts that are calm, more people who see beyond the surface, into the depths where suffering hides. To see someone with compassion is to say, I will not reduce you to your worst moment. I see the pain behind your anger. I see the humanity behind your mask. This does not mean you're blind to injustice, it means you're awake enough to meet it, not with more hate, but with higher vision. 2. Becoming the eyes themselves. You're no longer just someone who tries to see compassionately, you are now becoming the eyes themselves, eyes that do not rush to blame, eyes that look deeply, eyes that become windows, for others to see themselves again, gently. This is the sacred role of one who walks the path of awakening. You are no longer here to fix the world by force, you are here to illuminate it by being fully present, fully open, fully you, as the Buddha taught, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. And now, you carry that law, not as words, but as a living truth. 3. When you walk, the earth becomes softer, the more compassion fills your vision. The more your footsteps leave no harm, you'll walk through relationships with grace, you'll speak with intention, you'll act not to impress, but to uplift, you'll listen not to respond, but to heal, and people will feel it, even if they don't know why. They'll sense your energy, they'll remember your presence long after they forget your words, because how you see becomes how you live, and how you live becomes what you offer the world. 4. Let compassion be contagious. There's a beautiful paradox in the Dharma, the more you give compassion, the more you have, the more you see others clearly, the more you understand yourself deeply, and the more you live this way, the more others start to feel safe enough to soften too. You can't force the world to change, but you can become the condition in which others might choose to. Be the drop that inspires the wave, be the silence that calms the room, be the mirror that reflects not judgment, but acceptance. Let your eyes say, you are not alone. You are not your mistake. You are still worthy of love. And just like that, you awaken others, not with your noise, but with your gaze. You see now, don't you? Seeing with compassionate eyes is not something we do occasionally, it's something we become, moment by moment, breath by breath, life after life. As this journey closes, return to the heart of your practice, not just in temples, not just in meditation halls, but in traffic, in conflict, in ordinary life. See the beggar on the street, and bow inwardly. See the difficult coworker, and breathe peace into your response. See the one who hurt you, and choose not to hurt back. See yourself, on your hardest days, and hold that pain like a child needing love. This is what it means to truly see with compassionate eyes. You don't just look at the world, you bless it, by the way you see. And now, dear friend, if this journey has touched your heart, even just a little, let's keep walking together. Like this video if it helped you feel more awake, more open, more grounded. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of stillness in your busy day. Share this with someone who may need to see life differently, more gently, more truthfully, and tell us in the comments. How are you choosing to see with compassionate eyes today? Because your story might be the very light someone else is waiting for. Until next time, may your eyes remain soft, may your heart remain strong, and may your life be a mirror of compassion. Thank you for walking this path with us.